Well, I'm excited to introduce Shayne Burton. Shayne is a kick butt, take charge women's self-defense speaker. She's been a speaker, trainer, coach, author, and advocate for over 35 years. Her three major trainings include boundaries, dating the enemy, identifying the predatory interview, and warriors in heels. She wore some heels today, so are you going to demonstrate? Yeah, okay. Shayne was asked to speak with Elizabeth Smart at the Being Fearless convention. She was the only certified continuing education instructor for the Utah State Board of Realtors for a women's only self-defense training. She has 6 kids, 11 grandkids, with number 12 on the way. So please welcome Shayne Burton.
All right. So really quick. Being an entrepreneur is the hardest job you will ever love. So remember that. It is going to be more work than you ever imagined, but you are going to have greater satisfaction from the work that comes from that. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how that works. You thought being an entrepreneur is going to be just fun and easy. Fun, yes. Easy, no. But I'm going to tell you, do it anyway. So some of you, raise your hands. Tell me, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Who's going to be brave? Come on, it's a participation class. Raise your hand. Woo, yes. Freedom from or for? Financial freedom, yes. Money. What else? Yes. Want to be your own boss. That was my reason, even more than the other two, by a long shot. You may have guessed, I don't like anybody telling me what to do. All right, and if they do, we take it out in the parking lot. I'm joking. All right. Fact versus myth. I love to do this when I do my self-defense trainings because so many people believe that myths are facts. And they're so wrong. So what do you think some of the facts would be about being an entrepreneur?
You'll make a lot of money.
I'm glad you added the last half of that. But I can tell you, even if you do it right, sometimes there are issues that come up, right? I'm going to ask, how many of you have had your life go exactly the way you imagined it? Exactly, perfect. Right? Because I can tell you, I can promise you, at 5, my whole life changed. At 5. And nothing went the way I planned it from there. Nothing. Okay? Including becoming an entrepreneur, because I hadn't even thought about that, right? All right, what's another fact that we think is a fact about being an entrepreneur? Yes. It takes a lot of time. That is a fact. If you want it to be successful. If you want it to be successful, it does take time. Why?
A lot of the time you're doing it like by yourself. You have help, but you're starting your own business. You don't have something to really work on besides the information that you have from like say classes like this. But you are having to build it with your own tools and success. You're not going to like you're not submitting your resume or just like starting your job. You are creating a job.
You are creating the job. And I'll tell you what, experience is the greatest teacher, but I'm going to tell you, experience takes a lot of time. Okay? What else could be a fact? Come on, guys, you want to go into business. You need to know what some of the facts are. It will be hard. Okay, let's go to some of the myths. What do you think some of the myths are?
You'll easily make tons of money. Like, I mean, look at all the people who have already made tons of money. Obviously, you can do that too.
All right, I'm going to be honest with you. That's an MLM line, and it says, if I can do it, you can too. And I'm going to tell you, that's a myth. Okay? Does everybody have the same skill set? Absolutely not. How many of you would like to come up here and take my place? All right, I'm going to tell you. This is a myth. This is a myth that anybody can get up here in front of an audience and be just fine. Okay? How many of you guys are terrified of speaking in public? Raise your hands. Okay, I'm going to tell you, statistically speaking, most of you are lying. Okay? The truth is, it's hard for people to get up here. But I'm going to tell you, when I started doing this, I had no idea that that statistic existed. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm an introvert. Truly. Okay, I'm an ambivert. Does anybody know what an ambivert is? It's like a high-functioning introvert. Okay? And I am a high-functioning introvert. I did not know that being introverted meant you couldn't get in front of a stage or on a stage in front of people. I did it all the time. And I still do it. And I love it. I love it. When I'm done, I want to go home and I want to be left alone. That's my introvert. All right? But while I am here, I absolutely love this. Tell me, what is another myth? All right. You guys have some research to do. Before you ever get into a business of your own, you want to know what you're getting into. Because you want to know what? What are going to be your obstacles? Do you know what you want to be, Elijah? Not yet. Okay, does that mean you got some research to do? Okay, what is important when you are going to be an entrepreneur? What are some of the things that you think are going to be the most important? Yes.
I mean, I would say research is the most important part, because I went into a business not really knowing the information I needed to know, so it took a lot of falls before we had any type of success.
Okay, it takes thought, it takes research. Yes. Who are your customers? What's the target audience you guys want to address?
What is the worst possible scenario and how to prepare for it?
Okay, good. What else? Did I see a hand over here?
Yeah, but I just had I was going to say time management.
Time management. Okay, is that critical? That's critical. I'm going to tell you why, because when I start doing something, I am the worst. I don't know when to stop. And that's good and bad, right? That's good and bad. So I'm going to tell you, one of the most important things that you're going to want to do when you become an entrepreneur, pick something you love. Pick something you love. Now I'm going to tell you, I found out what I found out about what I found out, not because it was something I loved, but because of something that I didn't love that happened to me. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. This is my story. So I lived in what I thought was a really good neighborhood in Sugar House. How familiar are you guys with Sugar House area? Downtown Salt Lake? Okay. It's where I was born and raised, okay? And you know, if you'd have asked me if that was one of the safest, best neighborhoods in the world, I would have said, oh yeah, sure. No problem. Until I was 5. And I ended up being molested by a boy in my neighborhood who at the end threatened my life if I said anything and threatened me if I didn't return. I didn't do either of those. I didn't say anything, but I didn't return. So what did that do to me? What do you think that did to a 5-year-old child? Trauma. Lots of trauma. Do you know, at that point on, I knew what fear was? Until then, I could tell you I had no idea what fear was. You think fear is coming up in front of an audience? I'm going to change your mind. It's not. Okay? It was so traumatic for me, I actually had a mental block for 10 years. I didn't hardly remember anything about what happened. And I can be honest with you, to this day and age in my life, I still don't remember the majority of my childhood, sadly. I think. I don't know, maybe it was bad. All right. Okay. But then I had the same thing happen, only in a different way, when I was 17 with a guy I had been dating for 6 months. What a surprise. And I said at that very moment, guess what? This is never going to happen to me again. And I'm going to make sure that I make sure it never happens to as many other people as I can possibly get a hold of. Do you know, in that time period, in the last 35 plus years, I have taught over 10,000 women self-defense. Okay, I'm going to tell you one of the most important things about being an entrepreneur. And I learned this the first time I went to teach a class. So I started taking women's self-defense. Okay, it seemed like a good way to go, right? So I started taking women's self-defense, and while I was in the middle of working in one of the studios, I had somebody from another studio call, and I happened to answer the phone because I spent so much time there, I might as well have worked there, right? And I picked up the phone, and this guy says, "Who are you?" So I tell him who I am, and I tell him, he says, "Why are you there?" I tell him why. And he says, "Well, you know what? I'm teaching women's self-defense." And he says, "But it's not going really well. So maybe you could come and teach me and tell me what I'm doing wrong." Well, sure, who doesn't want to go tell somebody else what to do, right? So I said, great. I said, let's do this. We actually were working with a group of gang women, girls, young girls who were all involved in gangs, who were trying to pick a different route and were concerned about their safety. So we showed up. This was the first time I met this guy. And he comes walking in. And so in heels, I'm about 6 foot. But in flat feet, I'm about 5'8". All right? He comes walking in. He's about 5'7", dark hair, dark skin, missing half a front tooth, and he's wearing his black gi. And I'm like, you are their worst nightmare. Right? He comes walking in. I took one look at him and I went, we are in so much trouble. So, bless his heart, he really wanted to teach. He really wanted women to be protected, to understand the dangers. And yet, what was the problem? Say again? They were scared of him before they ever got started. What happens when you get scared?
Freeze.
Fight, flight, or freeze. Okay? Then on top of that, in addition to all of this, he decided that the way to teach was kind of about the blood and guts of an assault. So they went from afraid to terrified in about 5 minutes. So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, guys, I'm like 20. And he's a little bit older than I am, and I'm like, okay. So I find myself going, what do we need to do here? What do we need to do here? And the first time he went to grab me to do an escape technique, I just looked at him and said, don't hold me so tight, I'm married. Everybody laughed, but him. He's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm like, dude, work with me. Work with me. So I started cracking jokes through the whole thing. And I learned a very, very important lesson that day. What do you think that would be? Humor? Fear is very effective. And people who are assaulters will use fear. Okay? But when you're teaching somebody, when you are an entrepreneur, there's a word that you need to be, and that's engaging. You need to be engaging. So I hope by the time I'm done that any one of you would feel comfortable walking up to me How many of you at this point, if you had a question, would feel comfortable walking up to me and ask? Okay, maybe half the room. So hopefully by the time we're done, the other half of you would go, you know what? She's not too bad. I think I could go ask her a question if I needed to. You need to be engaging because you have people, most of you, unless you want to be an accountant, who don't work an awful lot with people as much, still need to have some engaging conversation with people. People want to do business with who? People they know, like, and trust. Okay? You want to be that person. All right. When I started getting involved in women's self-defense, I learned a few things. And the statistics were frightening. I'm going to be honest with you. I did a training recently and decided to update my statistics. I'm sad to say every one of these has gone up. Every one of them has gone up. And I'm going to tell you, statistically speaking, in Utah, it's not 1 in 6, it's 1 in 4 women. 1 in 4. Is that a frightening statistic? It should be. It should be. Now, this is a conglomerate, but I will bet about this point, most of you guys are looking like this. Right? These are the guys in the audience. What does this have to do with me, right? This is a women's self-defense speaker. This is why. This is important for everybody. And I'm not going to go into my self-defense training, although I may have somebody come up and take them down. I'm looking for the biggest guy in the room, and he's like right here. It's like, okay. Right? All right. So, Crucial Growth Now is my current business, and I actually have had several businesses over the years. Warriors and Heels, which was originally started out as Victim or Victor, has been my longest standing self-defense training. Okay, that company was around for a long time, and Crucial Growth Now has incorporated Warriors and Heels. So what I started to do, after this, I worked with this guy. We ended up working together for about, 6 whole weeks. And then he had a family emergency and ended up having to go back to Texas. And he said, I don't know if I'm going to be back. And I'm like, dang, things were just going good. Remember, we're sitting here thinking, oh yeah, things are going to go great. Life's going to happen exactly the way we think. No. All right, well, you may or may not know this about me, but I'm not one to sit back and go, oh man, what am I going to do now? Well, within a couple of weeks, there was a phone call that came into the studio that I was working with. And the guy that was over it came up to me and he said, you know, there's somebody on the phone who wants to hire you to do a self-defense training. Are you up to it? What do you think my answer was? Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I'm going to tell you, I was so motivated at 20 that the self-defense training that I wrote at 20, I am still teaching 35 years later. Well, 35 plus. So you guys do the math. Yes, I'm almost 60. And I love it. Every year was worth it. So I'm going to tell you that I put together that training, and then I put together other trainings. But my 3 top trainings have been Becoming Fearless, The Beauty of Boundaries, which is the one I taught with Elizabeth Smart. This is a picture of she and I. Yes, I was a blonde. I am now a decided redhead. One day I decided I wanted to be a redhead, and I am. Okay? We discovered that she and I are related by marriage. It was a fun, fun day. Dating the Enemy, Identifying the Predatory Interview. This is also a training, excellent for college students, but for any woman, single or not, because a predator often uses a regular conversation. Regular conversation. to interview. And you want to know if you're being interviewed. Warriors in heels, by far my favorite training. Women want to go out and go, how do I learn how to kick butt? And I can show you that. But let me tell you something. There is more to life than knowing how to kick somebody's butt. If you guys are going into business, you're going into business to do what? You think if I go out and I take somebody down in the parking lot and I say, you want to do some business together? You think they're going to go, oh yeah, let's do that. What was that? You got a 25% chance? Nice. So the reality is, while my audience, right? I need to know who my audience is. But so do you. Is your audience and mine going to be the same? Probably not. Elijah's like, yeah, nope. Girls, yes. Everything else, no. All right? Okay. What is your superpower? Does anybody know? Does anybody feel comfortable saying what their superpower is? Do any of you think you might know what your superpower is? Yes.
I don't have one. I mean, I can't even my own, but it's just there was a lot of LDS members that go here, and a lot of them go on their missions, and they have really good like talking skills, like people skills.
People skills? In other words, they have to learn to overcome this whole standing in front of an audience thing and talk? Yes. They do. They do. Do we learn skills as we go? Is it possible you don't know what your superpower is yet? Because I'll tell you what, I didn't know that this was my superpower until I had a reason to develop one. I have an uncle who did not become an artist until he was 83. He always wanted to it, but he didn't know that he could paint until at 83, my dear sweet aunt challenged him, if you want to do it, go do it. Go take a few classes, see what you can come up with. And he did. So one of the things I want to talk about in developing a superpower is something that is obviously a key thing in what I do, and that's fear. So tell me, what do fears and superpowers have in common? Yes. You can use your fear to access your superpower? Absolutely. Do you know how that happens? Mine would be a perfect example, right? I had something that happened to me that terrified me as a child. I turned it into a superpower, did I not? Okay, so when you're going to school, I'm going to tell you, my husband is a good example of somebody who went to school because he thought that that's what he was supposed to do. And when he went to school, he went into a career that he thought would be a good career to support a family. Is there anything wrong with that? Not necessarily. But many years later, he's not doing anything related to that and actually didn't really enjoy it and never actually pursued something that he did enjoy and that he wanted to do. He actually wanted to, I don't know, be the ball thing with Shaquille O'Neal or something. I can't even remember what it was. Which I don't think required a college degree. But the reality is, he never went after something he loved. And so after paying a whole lot of money for a college degree, he's done nothing with it. He did for a little while. He did for a few years. So I'm going to tell you guys, if you're going to invest in yourself, which is, by the way, what getting a college education is, if you're going to invest in yourself, invest in something you're going to enjoy. If you're going to pay all that money to go to school and learn and get an education, do it in something you love. Now, did I end up going to college? Kind of. I went to beauty college. All right? But in the end, that's not what I ended up doing for any extended period of time. I ended up doing this. Now, I've had other careers along the way. I've been in marketing. I was director of marketing for a company. I worked for a nonprofit organization and helped build that company. I'm working for another company now and helping build that company. But it's not because I went to school, although I'm not saying that that's bad. These all came out of me end up building my own business and my own company because I was doing something I was passionate about. Very passionate about. So you understand your passion is critical. Know what your passion is, because guess what? Your passion will probably become your superpower. So if somebody were to ask me, what is it that I like to do and why do I do what I do? Why do you think I do what I do? If I were to, yes, because I am passionate about it. But why am I passionate about it? Yes.
Your experience and your being able to help other people.
Because of my experience and being able to help others, yes.
Just that I help others, but I don't know the same thing.
The majority of my life has been about protecting and preparing. If I was going to talk about superpowers, those are my two superpowers. But I'm going to tell you, if you don't know what your superpower is, if you don't, meaning if you don't know what your why is, if you don't know what your passion is, your chances of success go down. I'm not saying that they're non-existent, but they go down. So do something that you are passionate about. Do something that you love. The reason I did what I did was because I knew the damage it did to me. And I didn't want that to happen to other people. And if you think that I don't know that it doesn't happen to guys, believe me, I do. As a matter of fact, the worst story I ever heard was something that had happened to a young man. But I focused on women because that was my experience. Is anybody familiar with kintsugi? Does anyone know what that means?
Pottery, seal it together, it's gold.
Okay, broken pottery, you looked it up, huh? Right? Okay. I'm going to be honest with you. If you aren't broken at some level now, at some point in your life, something will happen to break you. Kintsugi is a beautiful, beautiful art where if something happens to a piece of pottery, they take it and they put that piece of pottery back together with gold. And it becomes more beautiful for having been broken. So I'm going to encourage you guys, as you're going through your journey, as you're trying to figure out who you are, as you're trying to figure out what you're passionate about and what means the most to you as you go forward in your life and in your career, do what you're passionate about. And if you ever find yourself broken, like I did, take a minute to ask yourself, what do I need to learn from this? How can I grow from this? As a matter of fact, I'm going to say, if something happens and you're broken, or something breaks your business or whatever, say, you know what? There is something in here that will make me stronger. There's something in here that will make me better. There is something in here that will make me happier. And there is something in here that will add to my success. Because when you get broken, you become human. And I think somewhere along the way, sometimes we forget we're human. We think we're pretty tough. I always thought I was pretty tough, even at 5. Okay? But I'll tell you what, being broken is what fixed me. It's what made me stronger. It's what made me better. It's what made me human. And it's what made me be able to be human to others. To be able to reach out. To be able to go into dark spaces and to help bring people out. Whatever you choose to do, realize that you will do better if your goal is to make others better, to help others be better, to help others succeed. How many of you guys know Zig Ziglar? If you don't know Zig Ziglar, you're not old like me and Russ. Okay? But I'm going to tell you, Zig Ziglar is one of the best people for teaching you about being really good at business. He says, you will be successful in your life if you will just help enough other people be successful. And so I encourage you to do that on your journey. In your journey to success for yourself, do your best to help others and lift others along the way, and you will be more successful. Thank you so much for letting me come today. Are there any questions that anybody has? Yes.
Do you have like multiple locations, or is it just you, or is there like a team, or?
It is just me. Now, I have to admit, I do drag my husband in periodically to be my counterpart on the self-defense trainings. And I am I'm just, if anybody is interested, I'm available for hire. I used to work in the corporate industry. I used to teach actually how to hire and fire and deal with difficult coworkers and employees. That was also one of the things I used to do. Things have changed a lot in the corporate industry, and I don't do that as much now. But yes, I'm available for hire, if that makes sense. And in addition to that, anyone who is here today who is interested in taking my self-defense training, I have a coupon. It says 50% off. It's normally $199. It's a 3.5-hour training. But I've marked it down for anybody. So any women or girlfriends, it is a women's only. Sorry, guys, it's not to shut you out. If anybody wants to come and be my counterpart, you are welcome. My husband would be so grateful to have you take his place. I'm just saying. Okay? But yes, I do that, and instead of being $99, actually it's $89, but I had it at 50. I have it 50% off, but it's actually $89. If you are interested, please come up and talk to me afterwards. I don't take any less than 10 people in the class because it's a more effective class. But if you are interested and you want to participate, come and get a coupon and come talk to me afterwards. Any other questions? Thank you. All right, people are hungry. Let's go eat. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you letting me come today.